Hello everyone, welcome back. I am Asdani, Assistant Professor in the Department of Psychology. Today we'll explore the concept of personality and its significance in understanding ourselves and others. Let's start with the introduction to personality. According to Gordon Alpo, personality is defined as a dynamic organization within the individual of those psychophysical system that determines his unique adjustment to the environment. This definition emphasizes that personality is not static, it is a dynamic and ever-changing aspect of who we are. An individual's personality comprises unique and relatively stable patterns of behaviors, thoughts, and feelings. These patterns allow us to compare and contrast different individuals based on their psychological and behavioral characteristics. We often use the term personality when describing ourselves and others, and we all believe we know what it means. However, to truly understand its meaning, we should examine our intentions where we use the word. When you say I, you are summarizing everything about yourself, your likes and dislikes, fears and virtues, strengths and weakness. The word I encapsulates what defines you as an individual, whereas we separate it from everyone else. Let's break down some key characteristics of personality to start with dynamic. Personality is ever changing and it evolves over a period of time, relatively consistent and predictable. While it can change, there are stable patterns that can make our behavior predictable. Adjustable to the environment, our personality allows us to adapt to different situations and contexts. Unique. Each individual has specific features that make their personality distinct. Organized and integrated. Personality is not random, it is a coherent system of traits influenced by social interaction. Our interactions with others also shape our personality. Beyond superficial quality. Personality encompasses deeper traits rather than just surface level characteristics. A product of genetics and environment, our personality is shaped by both our genetic makeup and our life experience. Understanding all these aspects of personality helps us appreciate the complexity of human behavior and the uniqueness of each individual. Now, let's break these concepts into a deeper note one by one. Let's start with the structure of personality. In Freud's theory, the id is the portion of personality that is concerned with immediate gratification of primitive needs. It operates based on the pleasure principle, which states that the immediate pleasure is the sole motivation for a behavior. The id is characterized as a selfish, pleasure seeking structure that is primitive, amoral, insistent, and rash. Importantly, the id has no awareness of reality. It only seeks to satisfy the desires without considering the consequences. The id can attempt to satisfy its needs in two ways, through reflex action and through wish fulfilling, hallucinatory, or fantasy experiences. Freud referred to these attempts as primary process thought, which reflects its instinctual drives. Now let's move on to ego, which plays a crucial role in balancing the demands of the id with the realities of external world. In Freud's theory, ego is a part of the personality that takes into account external reality when expressing instinctive sexual and aggressive urges. This operates according to the reality principle, meaning it considers the external consequences of behavior when regulating impulses from the id. The ego helps us to navigate our desire while also being mindful of the social norms and the expectations. Superego. Finally, the superego represents our conscience according to Freud. This superego operates based on the moral principle, focusing on morality and ethical consideration. It evaluates whether various actions that could potentially satisfy the id impulses are right or wrong. The superego strives for perfection and judges our behavior against internalized societal standards. Freud believed that the contents of unconscious level represent a significant portion of our personality. Freud believed that the contents of the unconscious level represents a significant portion of our personality. He suggested that some ideas and feelings become unconscious because they are repressed. Repression occurs when we banish our conscious thoughts, memories, feelings, or motives that are particularly disturbing, forbidden, or otherwise unacceptable to us. The process of repression is unconscious and automatic. We are often unaware that we are doing it. However, the repressed materials do not simply remain hidden away. Instead, they continue to operate beneath the surface, influencing our behavior and emotion in ways we may not even consciously recognize. This leads to what Freud termed as neurosis, disturbed behavior characterized by anxiety or defensive reactions against that anxiety. Freud proposed that from birth onward, we have an innate tendency to seek pleasure, particularly through the physical stimulation of sensitive parts of the body, which he termed as erogenous zones. These includes the mouth, the anus, and genitals. As we progress through different stages, there is a shift in these erogenous zones as the parts of the body become more sensitive. Alongside the shift, there are parallel changes in the dominant psychological issues faced by the individuals. This is what we call it as psychosexual stages. Freud called each step in this process a psychosexual stage, and he identified several key stages. The first stage, oral stage, birth to age 1. The erogenous zone during the stage is the mouth. Infants derive pleasure primarily through sucking and later through biting. If a baby is given too little or too much opportunity to suck, it may develop an oral fixation. This can manifest in adulthood as behavior such as smoking or psychological dependency. The next stage would be anal stage from ages 1 to 3. The erogenous zone shifts to the anus. During this stage, children learn to control their excretion as parents engage them in toilet training. This is the first time that it is expected to be brought under control of the emerging ego. The initial part of the anal stage involves pleasure from expelling feces, while the later part involves pleasure from retention. Fixation during the stage can result in behavior such as messiness and disorder or excessive compulsiveness and overconformity. The third stage, phallic stage, which ages from 3 to 6. The erogenous zone during the stage is a genital. Children begin to develop sensual feeling towards a parent of the opposite sex. This stage also involves development of complexes, specifically the Oedipus complex, where a boy desires sexual involvement with his mother and sees his father as a rivalry. Latency, which ages from 6 to puberty, after resolving the Oedipus or Oedipal conflict, typically around ages of 5 or 6, children enter the latency period, which lasts until puberty. During this time, sexual interests become dormant even at unconscious level. The last stage is a genital stage, which ranges from adolescence to beyond. With the onset of adolescence, sexual feelings re-emerge, marking the beginning of final period known as a genital stage. This stage focuses on mature adult sexuality, which Freud defined primarily as sexual intercourse. Rather than being pathological, these ego defenses are considered normal behaviors that can have adaptive value, provided they do not become a style of life that enables individuals to avoid facing reality. This specific defense employed often depend on the individual's level of development and the degree of anxiety they are experiencing. The very first defense mechanism would be projection. This involves perceiving and reacting to unacceptable inner impulses and their derivatives as though they were external to oneself. For example, someone who is angry may accuse others of being hostile. The next, denial. This mechanism allows to avoid awareness of aspects of external reality that are difficult to face by disregarding sensory data. For instance, a person may refuse to accept a serious diagnosis. The next defense mechanism would be identification. This involves internalizing the qualities of another person by becoming like them. While introjection leads to an internalized representation experienced as other, identification is part of self. This can also serve non-defensive functions in normal development, such as adapting positive traits from the role models. We move on to the next defense mechanism, which is displacement. This mechanism involves shifting feelings associated with one idea or object to another that resembles the original in some way. For example, someone who is frustrated at work may come home and take out their anger on family member. Intellectualization, another interesting defense mechanism which involves using excessive and abstract ideation to avoid difficult feeling. An individual might focus on statistics of a disease rather than the emotional impact it has on them. Rationalization, which is very similar to intellectualization, this mechanism refers to justifying unacceptable attitude, belief, or behavior to make them more tolerable to our own self. For instance, someone might rationalize cheating by saying everyone does it. Regression, one of the earliest way of repressing emotion, this involves returning to an earlier phase of development or functioning to avoid conflict and tension associated with one's current level of development. For example, an adult may throw a temper tantrum when they are faced with stress instead of dealing with it maturely. So this comes to an end of the defense mechanism. Thank you for your attention. Let's continue our discussion on how these concepts apply in real life context. Thank you.